Hey everyone, it's Bill Telepan here again with the Talk with Telepan series. Now you're a registered dietitian and nutritionist. How did this all come from you going from that? I guess you have to, because a lot of, I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth, but I've talked a lot to, like Mark Bittman had pointed out and started, he now teaches up at Columbia in the food science, food health, in the health program up there. And he brought wits in to help teach these people know how to cook, right? Because a lot of times nutrition people or food policy people don't know anything about cooking, which is important, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and actually, so yes, I study, and it seems like disparate things that I'm doing this TV show and cooking show and writing for the Washington Post and the food column, and I'm a dietitian. To me, they're one and the same.
Right.
And all along, I really had this goal that I wanted to communicate my love of healthful cuisine. And I use the word love in there first because you got to love it. It has to taste
Right.
amazing, right? Um, Communicate that through all the mass media. And really, since I started, I mean, there was no social media even when I started. So bring it on, like bring on all the media. I'll take any of them. But I did my undergraduate degree in clinical nutrition. So I have that hardcore science background. I went on
Right.
to get my master's in nutrition education at Columbia Teachers College with a minor in journalism. So all along, I knew this is what I wanted to do. I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do, and I'm
Well, that's
so
awesome.
blessed. Yeah, and so yeah. But all along, I always loved cooking. I mean, I was the geeky college kid who on a Saturday would like take my cart down to the farmer's market and buy all of the like overripe tomatoes and go home and make a sauce.
Awesome.
Or, I mean, that was just always what I loved to do. And I always saw food and nutrition as being integrally linked. And when I was in private practice, which I was for about 10 years after I graduated from my master's, I always use recipes and food and real food and connecting with that. And I think it's new now. The younger dietitians who are coming on to the scene are really coming often from a food focus, from a real
Right.
kind of love and appreciation of local, seasonal, all the wonderful plant foods. But it wasn't the case when I was doing my master's. I mean, I think a lot of people were in the field that didn't really feel comfortable around food at all, to be honest with you. And I really have worked to change that within the
Well, that's
community.
what I was gonna say. Like, what can you like? What do you how? What would you suggest for someone like where you're surrounded by a lot of like these fast food restaurants, not no access to anything, and like like I guess my feeling is like with food and exercise, you get energy, right? So if somebody says to me, I'm too tired to exercise, I sometimes believe that it's because they're not eating well and they're not exercising because, right? So I mean, it's hard to motivate people to sort of change that lifestyle. Is it just basically saying to them, take the one step or walk a little, don't run, like
So, it's
what are the
interesting.
baby steps, I guess, to sort of
Yeah.
get to take that?
So I think actually the baby steps are like with the person figuring out what they think is realistic, where they see the change, right? Because what I found, especially right now in COVID-19, is that it's not even a question, like I don't even use the word willpower with people. It's not even a question of willpower. It's a question of like when people are exhausted, they're like exhausted. They're done. They're like exhausted and tired to the bone because they have been beaten down. And so what those patients, usually what I say is, where is there the space in your life that you can make a small change, but you can replicate that over and over again?
Right.
And for some people, it'll be a little bit of food. For some people, it will be going to bed a little earlier. For some people, it'll be saying, you know what, I'm going to go outside for 15 minutes when it's, sunny. Like it's going to look different for everyone. Yeah, someone just said stress is a big factor too. Stress
Yeah.
is a major factor. Like
Right.
when you talk about the incidence of disease and like the development of it, stress is a major, major factor.
Yeah.
So similar to making like red beans for, a Mexican dish, but it's
Exactly.
just changing it up instead of just using, like their flavors using cumin. We're using more of the chilies and the other spices that just moves it in a different direction.
I'll tell you, when I added the yogurt, when we added the finishing yogurt to that dish, it just reminded me with the masala flavors,
Right.
of chili, like a
Yeah.
vegetarian chili
Making a
dish.
vegetarian chili.
And
Yep.
that was the sleeper for me out of all the dishes. Because when I would tell like the people passing through and they would ask me what that is, I said, I would sometimes give samples to them to try, be like, you have to try this, amazing. And I would sell more of that dish through order because I was such a fan of it. So
Yeah. And it's so
I mean, I loved them all,
simple.
but you know what I mean? I was just like,
It's
that one
just
was
so
like, wow.
simple.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was
And I do
delicious.
that like as a quick fix every once in a while when I don't have like beans to, sit and soak them overnight, or I forgot to do it. A can of beans, I'll just get
Easily.
yes, it's much better when you start from scratch and you
Sure.
do, but the flavors are
Some good
so
quality
easy to
beans
put
out there.
together and you get amazing
Yeah.
cans and
Yeah.
you just use that.
Yeah.
The Goan masala was something that we did a lot with the kids because it's got the flavor profile is more black pepper and turmeric in there. This dish, a Goan dish called kaldeen, which is basically like I would say like children's food for introduction to Goan food, where it's not as spicy.
Right.
And I would make that a lot for the boys when they were younger. And I'd make it like, either it was with meat or vegetables or whatever, but that would be my curry base.
Right.
Because then I could use it with rice and they would eat it because the coconut milk sweetens it a bit. And so
Yeah.
that was something that even when they went to college, they were like, we have so many friends that have never eaten Indian food and are afraid, but this is something we think they will
Good
be able to
introduction.
eat
Yeah.
because it also kind of blends itself a little bit if you've eaten Thai curries.
Right.
With the coconut milk, you
Yeah.
kind of know where you're headed with it.
Kids how are they? I mean, are they really good eaters or are they picky?
Yeah. Like
Ish?
I'm not gonna tell you that my kids are like perfect eaters. Like every chef, everyone thinks that every chef's kids must be great eaters,
Okay.
but I'll tell you right now, and I'm sure you can vouch for it more than I can, like just because you want your children to eat a certain way, that doesn't mean they're ever going to eat the way you want them to eat.
Yeah, no, for sure.
My kids are good eaters, though. You know what? I really am proud, and I hope it continues with them. And, it ebbs and flows. So, like, one day they love something, and the next day they hate it, and then they'll go through a month of refusing to eat something. But then one random Tuesday, I'll walk into the kitchen, and they're eating it. So I don't know, my mantra with feeding children, no matter who you are, no matter what you like, is just to keep at it. Often I find that my daughter will, just to spite us, and I don't blame her because we're annoying.
Right.
She'll keep saying, I'm not eating that. I will not eat broccoli. I'm not eating it. But we'll just keep making it and keep eating it because we love it and we want her to eat. And we'll just keep it out on the table and we'll keep it in the fridge. And eventually when we're just sitting at dinner and having a conversation, we can just like see her little hand reaching over and taking the broccoli and munching on it. And it's when we don't ask her to eat it that she allows it in, right?
I found that for sure. I mean, there was a point where it's like, early on I would try to push something on my daughter. And then I just realized you just put it out. I think it was like the 13th time cauliflower was on her plate.
That's it.
She ate it. And she wouldn't eat Brussels sprouts until the cool bartender at Telepan said, oh, yeah, I like Brussels sprouts. So she started eating Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
So you grew up your mom was a food writer in Montreal. So, and I guess I read somewhere that she was a really great cook and cook these like sometimes elaborate meals.
Yes.
Were you a little rebellious child and just
absolutely? I was exactly like my daughter was. Right? I mean, I think we were all relatively good eaters. I have 2 older brothers, and I think we all were decent eaters. None of us were super picky. My middle brother was pickier than the other 2 of us, but my memory is that we all basically ate everything, and my mom cooked really simply beautiful, fresh food. Like we were very, very lucky that we always, we were like growing up in the 70s and 80s when everyone else was cooking from a box or a microwave or trying to make like super fast meals. And my mom kind of rebelled against that and always really loved to cook simple, fresh ingredients. But truthfully, like I also have memories of all I wanted to do was go to my friend's house for lunch or dinner and eat what they were eating because they were getting like mac and cheese and
Right.
hot dogs and, you know, fast food or things out of a can that I was never allowed at my house. And I was so annoyed because I was like the not cool pantry. You know, when
Right.
my friends came over, my mom gave them like zucchini fritters or something. Zucchini was a big thing. My mom scared away all our friends by insisting that they eat zucchini, and it was horrifying for us.
You're really busy. I'm like myself. I mean, I'm a chef, so I'm work a lot, and I get home, but I want to cook and all. And since you sound like you love to cook too, how do you, with your busy schedule, how do you stay ahead? What do you do?
Yeah, so I am always moving around. I always feel like I'm in and out of the house at appointments. My fiance is also an athlete, so we're both in and out of the house, and we always need something kind of healthy, ready to go. We don't always have like a ton of time or patience during the middle of the day maybe to make a lunch and start from scratch. So our fridge is always filled with, I made these earlier, some grilled chicken. I just buy chicken thighs. I like maybe on a Sunday night, make a ton of chicken, and then you can always pop these in the microwave or depending on what you're making, eat them cold. So they're just ready to go to add to a salad, a wrap. I maybe cut up some onions so those are ready to go. I made tahini dressing, also super simple. I feel like it sounds like it might be complicated. It's not at all. And I made some chickpea croutons, which are super easy. Just pop them in the oven with some onions and garlic, salt and pepper, and you just bake them, and then you have something crunchy to add. So we always have kind of lettuce, avocado, tomato, like kind of ready to go ingredients. So whenever you need to make something, it's 5 minutes and you're eating.
I know I do my little bag of veg. I have lettuce here. We're gonna have a similar dish tonight. And I have I always have some veg stuff ready to go because it's always one of these things where, like you said, I want to come home some days. I'm gonna have something very simple. Like whether it's a pasta, sometimes I do fried rice. There's always some kind of meat or fish in the house that we'll use. But we also go vegetarian,
not just of Americans, but of people around the world who were able to cook with all the ingredients of the world. Everything was suddenly, I mean, in the 70s, I had to drive across town to buy olive oil. You know, by the 90s, by the 2000s, you could buy sea urchins. You know, so all of that was all very exciting. But by the time I published How to Cook Everything by 2000, say, it was clear to me that there was much more to think about around food than just cooking and enjoyment and traveling and seeing how other people enjoyed it and so on. I mean, all of that's wonderful and remains important and terrific stuff. But, you know, it became clear to me, and I know to you also, that where these ingredients were coming from, how they were grown, how people were treated who were raising them, where money went to, who was determining what got grown, all of this stuff was really important. I mean, to me, it was a seminal book was Fast Food Nation, Eric Schlosser's Fast Food Nation. And, you know, it was easy enough to rag on McDonald's and to say, oh, McDonald's sucks. Why would anyone eat that stuff? Blah, blah, blah. But to think about not so much where McDonald's came from, but how it grew, how it was continuing to grow. What about the system encouraged its growth? How come we weren't seeing similar growth of restaurants like Telepan or affordable restaurants modeled on Telepan, for example, which were, you know, where you were serving local ingredients, real food, cooked on the spot, da-da-da-da-da. Instead, what was becoming popular was junk, more and more and more. So I started to write about that stuff around 2005, 2007. I wrote a book called Food Matters, and then I wrote Animal Vegetable Junk.
A few things. Mobility is not just flexibility. It's not just stretching out the muscles in your body, but it also works around the joints and improves joint mobility and circulation around the joint. So it's even better for longevity and for injury prevention and recovery. So the 4 main points of mobility are the ankles, the hips, the thoracic spine, so the center of the spine, and the shoulders. So that's what we're going to work with.
The thoracic spine is a key for my job as a chef. That's all I gotta say. Actually, hips too. Ankles. It's all. Anyway, it's all.
Yeah, so what we want to do, the biggest thing here is that your heels stay on the ground.
Right.
So drop down, the elbows are in front of the knees, and the only reason the weight's so far away is because if it's too close, you're going to lose your balance and fall down.
Okay. All right.
Right here. Okay, heels down, and then you're going to shift the knee forward and back. Shift the other knee forward and back. This is just working right into the joints of the ankles.
All right. I'm gonna try that one too. That looks good. My
Okay.
knee can handle that. My knee can handle that. For some strange reason, I can do squats and all that right now. But like I said, I don't have the swelling anymore. So. So I want to know. I don't really work with the nutritional yeast myself, but I know a lot of people are, and a lot of people who are plant-based do. So how is this? So you're just putting this in as sort of like the cheese factor, and are you putting a good amount of it in, or just a little amount of it in?
Yeah, it's really what's carrying the flavor. So I'm adding to 1 cup of butternut squash, I'm adding a quarter cup of nutritional yeast. So it's a significant amount. And it just helps kind of give it that texture and that flavor. I go heavy with the nutritional yeast. Again, like buy it in bulk if you're cooking plant-based and love, the flavor of dairy products. This is a great way to recreate it.
Have you made a cacio e pepe with it?
We have, yes.
Right. So you just sort of swap out that for the pecorino or the Parmesan.
Yep, and it really, I mean, it's, I also do love Parmesan and eat Parmesan, but this is definitely like the next best thing. And sometimes you get kind of like just an interesting, different flavor depending on the recipe. So yeah, you can do a cacio e pepe. I mean, it's great just in any pastas, like a traditional like broccoli rabe chili pasta to add that. Bolognese, we make kind of like a nutritional yeast almond Parmesan that gets sprinkled on top.
I'm gonna buy a little, try it out. So
yeah, it's pretty tasty.